Well, welcome to the monthly Q&A call. I've switched it from fortnightly to monthly to give us a bit of a break in between each session and also just to keep the topics relevant. And yeah, so I want to try out monthly. We'll see how we go. In case it does become too long in between calls, then I might go back to fortnightly. But for now, we're going to do monthly Q&A calls. And tonight, our topic is all about protein. So what I'll do is I'll quickly give a quick introduction to what protein is, how I define it, and then from there, we're going to get into some questions that people have asked before. And now, how I will start before I read out questions and do all that is I just want to do a quick little disclaimer. So everything that I say right now, this information shared on this call is general in nature and intended for educational purposes only. It is not personalized, medical, or nutritional advice and should not be treated as such. Individual needs vary. Always consult a qualified GP or registered dietitian before making specific and significant changes to your diet, particularly if you have existing health conditions. Myself and James Whitty at Lean Fit Performance accept no liability for decisions made based on the content of this. So I've said the little disclaimer. Let's get into it. So protein. Protein is one of our three main macronutrients. Alongside with fat and carbohydrates, protein is also helpful and plays a role with energy production. So basically helping metabolism, everything function for the day-to-day life. And now, protein is by far the most important macronutrient when it comes to our goals in the gym and outside, and especially as we age. And now, without going further in depth of that, because it might be answering the questions, that is quickly and simply how I define protein. So now, first question, because there was a few to get through. So I did allow a lot of time for this. And just scrolling up to number one. Cool. All right, simply put, why does protein matter? This is from Emma. So why does it matter? Protein matters in the case of our goals. So wanting to keep lean muscle or grow lean muscle, but also potentially losing some body fat. Why it matters is because if we're not having enough protein in our diet, what will happen is if we're doing gym training, nothing is getting replenished from the macronutrient of protein. If we're just having too much carbs and fats, that'll just be used for either energy, so we can use it and be fueled for longer, or it'll just get used as stored fat if we're doing nothing at all. However, if we're having a good amount of protein, what will happen is if we've done some form of workout, is the protein will be used to build up some muscle, keep on that lean muscle, and it will also just build up the strength as we go on. Now, also why it matters is because when we're having enough protein, it's also going to be the main macronutrient that's going to keep us fuller for longer. If you have carbs and fats in your diet, you'll obviously know that it's quite palatable, so it's quite nice to the taste buds. So we just want more and more. However, if we have some good sources of real protein, we will be fuller for longer, and it'll just play a huge role with us preserving lean muscle and keeping growing with that muscle too. Now, why does it matter? That's pretty much all I wanted to say for why it matters, because we've got a few to get to. So that was question one. Question two, I'm going to say this is anonymous. Don't want to mention who this is. What does protein actually do in the body? I can't answer that. What it does is obviously builds muscle, preserves lean muscle as well, but also just helps regulate our hormones, enzymes, and a bunch of other in-depth physiological functions too, which we don't need to worry about right now. And I actually can't think on the top of my head. So it basically just plays a role in all of that. If I'm just targeting a specific group of people, such as the people going through menopause, for instance, protein is going to be such a huge factor for you guys when it comes to making sure that we aren't losing too much muscle. So that term, losing too much muscle or muscle loss, is called sarcopenia. And when when you go through menopause, you're going to lose a bunch of muscle. And if you're not strength training and you're not having enough protein in your diet, well, unfortunately, you're going to lose that muscle. So going back to the question, because I just went on a bit of a a rant there, is what does it actually do in the body? Well, it just helps, I guess, regulate. Yeah, what does it actually do in the body? It just helps regulate all those hormones and everything that's out of balance. Basically, just like, I didn't mean to go on a rant about menopause, but if if you are going through menopause, you're going to go through like a bit of a storm, and you're going to find yourself hormones are out of whack, muscle loss, tiredness, flushes, all these things. But if you're strength training, eating enough protein, eating the right amount of calories as well, that's going to be your best friend and the best thing for you during that process. So that's basically why it matters. Also around bone health as we age and things like that too. Cool. I know I'm going quick, but I do have a fair few to get through. Number 3 is from Antonio. How much protein should I be eating every day? Okay. I'm going to pretend it's not specific to him. I'm going to just keep it real broad. And now, what I want you to do, if you're trying to figure out how much protein you need to have, there is some form of range that we want to make sure we stick to. So if you can see my lovely handwriting, 1.6 to 2.2 times your body weight will give you the amount of grams you need in protein. So if you're someone who is maybe quite bigger in nature and you're in a large calorie deficit, I would recommend you have a fair amount of protein just so you keep fuller for longer, because you're in quite a strict calorie deficit. However, if you're someone who struggles to really get protein in, doesn't really like animal products, and just wants to do enough, aiming for a bit on this lower end of the spectrum. It's not low, it's just the lower end of the spectrum. It's still good. That's really good. So for myself, if I'm someone who's sort of happy where I'm at with my weights, but I still want to make sure that I'm eating enough, I would choose something like 2. So 2 times my body weight will give me the amount of grams that I need. So for instance, I'm 80 kilos, 2 times it by 80, 160. So I would need 160 grams of protein. I'm going to say the letter J is me. So I would need 160, almost forgot, grams per day of protein. Okay. So just remember that range times by your body weight, and that'll give you the amount of protein you need. Now, obviously, there are nuances to this. We can always change it. There's going to be, if you're older, younger, any forms of nutritional problems, digestions, things like that. But just for the purpose of this call, that's the range that I want you to stick with. Cool. Now, next question is, how much protein, it's anonymous, how much protein should I eat if I'm over 40? Pretty much the same. I'd say if you're over 40, no pre-existing health conditions, you're just sitting at a desk and you're weight training, I'm assuming, because we're on this call, I would stick to that range. So, sorry, I should have read ahead. That's the same question. We just doubled up. I'm going to scroll down. I should have taken that one out. Oh, that one's kind of similar. So how much protein should I have in each meal? I would just divide that number by the amount of meals that you're having. For instance, for me right now, I'm having no breakfast, trying to just push it out to about midday. I would just divide the protein by 3. If you're having 4 meals in the day, trying to divide that by 4. That's how much you should have. And then what we want to do, let's go with, I just got notified that the link isn't working, hence why I'm by myself with Levi. So just probably some people trying to get in, but that's okay. You guys can watch and hopefully you're watching here the recording of it. So yep, just sent that. If people come in, they come in. Now, next question. Should I eat, it's from Amy, should I eat protein before bed? It's actually a good question. Should I eat protein before bed? Now, not going on the science, just going purely anecdotal from what I would recommend is if the goal is gaining lean muscle, getting that muscle tone, losing a bit of body fat, you go in the gym and all of that, I would just flat out tell you not to worry about having protein in your diet just before bed, just because it might disrupt your sleep. We want to make sure sleep is good, so then the next day we're functioning well, we're firing for our gym session, we're lifting well, and then we can ingest protein throughout the day, and then that'll have that good effect. If we're just having protein before bed because we want to just have more and more, I'm just going to let use K in. I don't know why that didn't work. I don't know why. I just try to let someone in, didn't work on the call. Sorry for that. If we try and have protein before bed, then as I said, it might disrupt our sleep. However, there's some supplement gurus and Nutrition Warehouse and places like that will probably swear by things such as casein protein, which is slower digesting, which can allow for muscles to grow as we're at rest and things like that. I think that's such a small percentage of any thing that's going to change and move the needle when it comes to your goal. When it comes to overall, should you just eat protein before you go to bed? I would just flat out say, don't worry. Okay. Cool. Dave, what about post-workout protein window? Post-workout protein window. So that is a really good thing. When I first started being a PT, there was a huge craze about the anabolic window. So anabolic mainly meaning growth, muscle growth window. So anabolic window. And that's basically, I'll just write here, anabolic windows, AW, is basically a window which is about 1 to 2 hours post your gym session. So a nice tough gym session, you're lifting weights, good full body split, or just focusing on upper body or lower body split, is once you've done that session, is we've got a 1 to 2 hour window where our body's basically firing and it's going to just digest that protein much quicker. And why that's good is because if we're able to replenish the muscles that have been teared throughout the gym session, we're going to get that good lean muscle look that we're after. But in saying that though, that all means nothing if our calories aren't in accordance to our height, body weight and age, and our protein isn't at the right number that we need to hit. That becomes useless. But the anabolic window does have some little effect. So if you do want to enhance your results and you are doing everything right, I haven't seen, but let's say I've seen everything and everything's right, then yeah, go for it. And that's where and why people brought in, shakers and started having protein shakes straight after their gym session, is because of this anabolic window. So that is what the window is about. I think that he said something window, but I just talked about anabolic window. Yeah, protein window, same thing. Okay. Doesn't matter, Chris, does it matter when I eat my protein? Well, that's similar to the anabolic window and having it before bed. I guess it does. I think this is more of a digestion question and maybe a Q&A I do later on. But I'm huge in regards to digestion. If our body's digesting everything the way it should, and we've got enough sleep, we've just got this good habit, good pattern, so then our training sessions are good, our sleep's good, our body's firing on all 4 cylinders, and then everything's going to flow well. So if we're having protein before bed or first thing when we wake up and things, it's not going to ruin our results. But if we're giving our body enough time to digest our food, so having a period where we're not eating is actually really good. It just cleans out all the bad waste, cells, things like that. So I would always recommend that we do have some form of non-eating. And I know it sounds pretty basic, but a lot of us actually eat a lot, whether it's first thing in the morning, just before we go to bed, throughout the day, snack, big meals. So having the understanding, or the word just not coming to me at the moment, but just being aware, I guess, aware of how much time you're having between meals, or from when you've had your last meal of the day and the meal the next day. I would basically say that's what matters the most when it comes to having your protein outside of that anabolic window answer that I gave before. Answered that one. There's a lot of double up questions, so just bear with me. Oh, okay. I was waiting for something like this. Okay. Question is, does it matter if I'm going to keep this anonymous. Does it matter if I'm a vegan? Will I be able to get enough protein? Now, I haven't gone into depth, and I don't know the exact types of amino acids, but basically when it comes to a complete protein, we've got 9 essential amino acids that help us to create a complete protein, so it can get used for muscle building, can be used for its actual function. Amino acids, that word I just said, I'll say, is basically the building blocks for protein. Hopefully my writing's okay. Building blocks. Okay. Now, if we're talking about really, just all that's really messy. If we're talking about building blocks, that's obviously like a foundation. And now with animal products, so let's just go with a steak. It will contain pretty much all, if not all, our 9 essential amino acids. Please don't quote me. It's 8 o'clock or just about 8 o'clock at night. Could be wrong, but I know for sure that it contains a lot of those essential amino acids, and that is what we call a complete protein, which can help us preserving muscle, rebuild that muscle, and basically get what we want to get. Now, but back to the question is, if we're a vegan or a vegetarian, we're only getting certain amounts of animal products, will that disrupt our building blocks, our amino acids for this protein? The short answer is no. It's just a little bit harder to get that complete proteins. And now, as I said, I haven't done my research and I don't know exactly what foods, but lentils, chickpeas, black beans, there are a bunch of ways, and vegans are pretty switched on with it anyway. There is ways to get it. It's just much harder. And sometimes, especially if you're trying to reduce body fat, meals and things like that, it can do you a detriment because you actually end up eating more calories as a result. So anyway, in terms of vegan, you can do it. It just might be a little bit harder. Okay. How does protein help with fat loss? Anonymous again. I kind of answered it, but I'll just answer it again, just to reiterate. How does protein help with fat loss? Well, if we are having higher protein foods, it's going to keep us fuller for longer. In a true fat loss phase, we need to be hungry. Okay, and I'm just going to flat out say that because I've said it to a few clients already, is you can do all the calculations in the world to figure out your calorie deficit. But at the end of the day, if you're not tracking accurately or correctly, or you're not feeling hungry, which is probably the main one, that's signaling, I can't even spell or can't even speak, signaling the hormone, leptin, ghrelin, to basically tell you that you are hungry if you're not eating enough for your needs. Or if you're finding yourself full, or you're like, yeah, James, I'm feeling fine, I'm full, that's telling me that your body's at homeostasis, which means you will stay the same, you won't lose weight. So going back to what I said, 2 things. You're probably not tracking your calorie deficit correctly throughout the period of the days and the weeks. Or 2 is that you are not actually hungry. So going back to the question, sorry, I just went on a rant, is protein with fat loss. Yes. Is that in a true fat loss phase, we need to feel hungry, not starving. You know, we're in a desert, but like the amount of clients I have and have worked with in the past, there's no one that I've had that's like, James, I'm absolutely starving, I'm eating weeks. Like, no, that's just hasn't happened. So what I'm saying is to feel a little bit hungry. Good little case study from one of my clients, I'm not going to say her name because she's definitely watching this recording, is she was a bit, I don't want to say unhappy, but just wanted a bit more results in the first 4 weeks of her program. And the one thing I said to her is, hey, I want you to feel hungry. And she said, oh, okay, yep, haven't felt proper hungry. I'm like, all right, for the next few days before our next session, I want you to really think about it and ask yourself, are you hungry throughout the day? Came to her next session, and then she said, James, my pants are a little bit looser. I'm starting to notice more results. I was doing everything else right. I was training hard. I was counting my calories, but just by that simple thing of feeling a little bit hungry, I now notice the results. So obviously a bit of a rant, but I find this really important, is because we're going to feel a little bit hungry, we need to make sure that we're having this macronutrient and prioritizing that macronutrient protein, because it's going to keep us fuller for longer. And it's a marathon, not a sprint when it comes to fat loss. So we need to make sure that we're having good sources of protein throughout the day in each meal so we can keep up with that fat loss phase. Okay, hopefully that answered the question. A little bit long, I know. We've got 9 minutes. We've got a few questions to get through. That's a double up. How do we structure meals around protein? I feel like I answered that. What should I eat for breakfast? I like it. All right, cool. Rob, what should I eat for breakfast to hit my protein target? Now, I'm just going to give you my suggestion. So, breakfast, let's say that's breakfast. What I would recommend for breakfast, I'm not currently eating breakfast. I'm pushing it out a little bit. I find it's better for my work function, for my brain function throughout the day of work. It's late at night. That's why my brain's not functioning well. And in saying that, though, that's for the work week. For the weekend, what I normally have when I've got a bit more time to cook and all that is I like to just go for my staple, which is just eggs. So I like some eggs. If I'm in a fat loss phase, I would try and reduce, the amount of either yolk or some people make scrambled eggs with milk and things like that. Just get rid of that. Don't need that. You can, if you're in serious results mode, I would get rid of any form of bread and I would just have like mushrooms. Sorry if it's too small. So mushrooms, I would have like spinach. Basically, we just want heaps of volume, but just with little amounts of calories. I would have tomato. I'm just going to write T. I would just have things that, just going to be nice and colorful. It could be 2 to 3 eggs. Don't judge me on the amount of eggs, mushrooms, spinach, tomato. Just loading up the plate with a lot of that stuff. Onions, you can just like caramelize them. I don't know how you do that, but you know what I mean. Onions, just really smash it on. And if you really need bread and you're absolutely struggling, starving, all that stuff, have 1 piece of organic sourdough bread. So sourdough. Anyway, that's what I would have for a weekend breakfast. If I was having if I was rushing, a lot of my clients like the overnight oats. If you would like that recipe, I'm not going to write it all here. Send me a message and I'll flick that through. So either that or overnight. That's an O, overnight oats. You get the point. Okay, so that's what I would recommend for brekkie. If you are on a run, you can always just have a snack, something simple, like a YoPro. It's always good, bit of yogurt, Greek yogurt, something that's quick and easy. Could be just a protein shake. They're going to be the best things that you can have for a high protein brekkie. Now, a couple more minutes. I'll answer one more, which is a good one. There's a few double ups. There's a menopause one. I sort of answered that. Apologies. Protein timing. Everyone loves the timing. Is it expensive to eat that much protein? Is it expensive? I'm going to answer that question slightly different. Okay. The question is it expensive? Don't really know why I'm writing it, but just to help me stay on track with the actual question, not going on a rant too much, is eating protein going to cost you a lot of money? And now that I'm thinking more and more, it will. And I remember my vegan friends once upon a time would always say how much money they saved from when they were a animal eater to then a vegan. And it's because it is expensive. You know, when you go to Woolies, Coles, even Aldi, when you're in the meat section, you know, it costs you a lot of money. I just went to Woolies before, bought even just like one day's worth of groceries, and it cost me like $60. So it is, yes, it is expensive. And I think the whole point is trying to make things as easy as possible. You want to choose good options that you can meal prep. So things like, you know, chicken mince, turkey mince, beef mince, things that are just going to be like tunas and things like that are going to be easy for you to just quickly have. Obviously, you can go so in depth and buy every high protein meal on the planet. And I guess that's where I was heading to with that question. And I'll probably leave it this call and end this call on that point. So as much as protein is important, as I said at the start of the call, the most important macronutrient for us when it comes to our goals in the gym and everything surrounding that, it also is currently overhyped, in my opinion. And that's because if you go back 20 years, the hype of it all was low fat, and then probably fast forward 5 years from there was gluten-free. Skip a few years because COVID happened, blah, blah, blah. But we're in a stage right now where everything is high protein. If you go into the supermarket, every packet, everything is saying this much protein, 30 grams of protein, high protein yogurt, high protein. And as much as I said it's great, we've got to be careful when it comes to the marketing behind it, because at the end of the day, these companies just want your money. So why I'm finishing off with this is just for you guys to keep it super simple. Yes, protein is important. Yes, we need to be training hard and eating enough. What is enough? 1.6 to 2.2 grams times your body weight is enough. Spread that out amongst the meals. And then that's all you really need to do. If you have animal products, it's going to be easier to consume that. And then lastly, to finish off with, is if you are at the shops or somewhere at the servo and you're like, I just need something, I don't want to have crap when I am trying to be in a fat loss phase, this is what I would tell you to do. Firstly, look at the back of the product, look at the calories. Okay, cows, you can see that, good. Then I would look at the protein. How much protein is it? Remember, your magic number is the grams that you had for the day. So then you're going to have figure out, okay, that's X amount of protein. We want to make sure we hit that protein target. So something that's higher in protein is better. But then lastly, we don't want to just eat a bunch of processed foods and things that are just going to upset our gut. So then we would look at you can see that, yes, ingredients. So then looking at the ingredients list, looking at the ingredients list and looking for, I just realized everything's on a slant, but is looking at the ingredients list and is looking at how many ingredients are on there. We want less is more, and we want to be able to understand what's on the ingredients list. So if if the first ingredient is sugar, for instance, that's going to be saying to us that that's mostly sugar, whatever if it's a bar or if it's a packaged meal or whatever. We're going to see, is that calorie in line, or is the total calories of that serving or that meal in line with our calorie target for the day? Is that going to be enough protein to keep us fuller for longer and to hit our protein targets to make sure we're preserving lean muscle and even building muscle depending on our goal? And does the ingredients list stack up, or are we just having a bunch of processed foods and foods that are going to upset our gut? Okay, that's what I want you to focus on in all of that. And now looking at the time, it's 7:59 and I just finished, so I'm really happy. And I understand a lot of people couldn't make the call and I got notified that the link wasn't working, so I do apologize. So if you're watching, and you probably are watching this recorded link, thanks so much for staying this whole time. If you have any further questions, just send me a message, and I hope you stay on track with your health and fitness goals. Until next time, see you later.